What does nostalgia mean to you? Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Arly. Today's question is yet another slightly loaded question because it can mean so many different things. But I think that's the beauty of the question. So, nostalgia. Nostalgia is something that kind of has been memeified because of millennials, because of people in my age group that remember the 90s, everything about 90s. But nostalgia can happen to anyone. Someone who's 10 years old could have nostalgia for when they were 5. Anyone can remember something and miss it or wish that things were different or back the way they remember. So that's why I kind of worded the question that way. So that way it kind of includes everyone. It doesn't matter how old you are. You remember something. It probably changed over time and maybe you miss it. So in my case, nostalgia means a lot of things. For me, the first things that I think of when I think of nostalgia are a lot of those very stereotypical 90s things. I was born in 1990, right there, right at the end of 90. So, but still. So for me, it's definitely like all of those old Nickelodeon and Disney cartoons, waking up and seeing those before school, seeing them on the weekends, playing on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and more importantly, N64, because I was older. Like, I played on NES. I was brought into the world of video gaming on the NES when I was like 5, and that did shape a lot of what I like about video games. But the N64 is way more ingrained as like the system that really got me going. Like all the Zeldas and stuff like that really feels nostalgic to me. On my gaming channel, we played Majora's Mask, and man, did it bring back so much like good vibes, good feelings about the past, and a lot of nostalgia. But yeah, video games, cartoons. I don't know if this is something people remember, but for me, it was kind of a nice feeling, and I miss it. But this wasn't that long ago. But when I was a kid, and I'm talking like 10 years old, so like 2000, maybe like 1998, there were a lot more vacant lots. And I don't mean that to mean like, my neighborhood was decrepit or anything. I just mean there weren't any houses built. There was like, the house that we lived in when I was in kindergarten had a field next to it. And maybe, people who live in rural areas are not going to really understand what I'm talking about. But I'm from Chicago, so I live in a neighborhood where the houses are right next to one another. Now imagine all those houses are next to one another, but every like 15 or 20 houses, there's just an empty space with flowers and grass growing in it. And it's owned by someone, but there's no house. It hasn't been contracted for a house to be built. It's just there, and that's it. And they were all over. And that ties in to another nostalgic memory, which I've already mentioned in a previous video, which is going out fishing and going out in nature, hiking, catching insects, just being out, getting my hands dirty, walking the dirt trails, like being in the beating sun. I loved it all. I loved it so much. And I feel like that was definitely a part of that, is that and this was more on the spectrum of things that affected my dad, because when he was young, there was there was open space everywhere in this city. And, it all got developed over. And I got, like, the last trickle of that. So when I was a kid, I kind of saw the last couple of gaps get filled in as I grew older and more people wanted to live in places. So that kind of made me sad. And I wish that was something that was still, I mean, population keeps growing, right? That's kind of how it works. But I kind of miss just having those empty spaces. Just fields of flowers just growing for nature to take place in. Even if that, if people look at that as like, oh, vacant lots, that's got to be bad. Like, I never looked at it that way. So that was something that I don't think many people have a nostalgic view of, like I do. So let's see. Yeah, video games, definitely video games. All, like, I still play so many video games now, and a lot of the games that I enjoy now were influenced by the things I played as a kid. Mostly platformers, mostly like RPGs, adventure style, lots of Nintendo. I miss See, this question's like a two-part question, because it's like, how did it influence you, kind of, in a way? Like, what do you do now because of nostalgia, and what do you like now because of nostalgia? But also, what do you miss and what do you wish it was? So I play a lot of video games that are based off of the ones I played as a kid, not to mention replaying the old ones. But I also miss having the free time to play video games, because even when I was a kid and I was in school, obviously I was at school, but homework was not awful, and I wasn't working full time, obviously, and I had a lot more time for video games. And even now, like, I can make the time to record these little 10-20 minute videos, but I find myself working and sleeping most of my life away at this point. It's really depressing sometimes, and I think a lot of these nostalgic feelings for a lot of us have to do with a lack of time, because things felt like they lasted forever when we were kids, right? Things felt like, you had the time to just sit in front of a TV and watch whatever they threw at you. You know what I mean? And that seems so stupid to say, because obviously adults watch TV too, but especially in today's age with Netflix and instant gratification and basically binging an entire series, you have more choice, but it doesn't feel the same. And don't get me wrong, I binge. I watch so many things, and I'm glad we're able to do that. I wouldn't take that away, but I miss having the time to just turn on a channel that I liked and just let it run and watch everything that they show. I miss the old Food Network. That was something that I really... At one point, I wanted to be a chef so bad, mostly because of watching Food Network, and I was convinced otherwise because reasons. I got into it with people about my choices, and it was decided that chef school was not for me. What can you do? I was still trying to impress a whole bunch of people, and I have since learned that that was a stupid move. But I also don't regret the school that I went to fully. I do regret the student loans, which I would not have had I went to cooking school. But I digress. But yeah, I think I just miss the time. I miss having the time to just sit down, and that's something I did with Food Network too. I would get home from school, I would turn on Food Network, and I loved everything that they put on. Like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was four different chefs cooking in a row, if it was a contest like Chopped, if it was like a huge, like, prize winning, like a build the biggest cake out of, like, it didn't matter. I would watch all of it, and I had the time to do it. I would get home, finish my homework, and just watch Food Network and play video games until I felt tired. Because, well, when I was a little kid, not so much, but like when I was a preteen, teenager, high schooler, like, I didn't have a bedtime. Like, I could stay up. I just had to suffer if I had school the next day, and I felt like staying up late. That's just how it worked. But I definitely miss that time. And then, even though I can still do this now, I don't think it would feel the same just because of where my mind's at. But for some reason, the way that I used to go to sleep, I used to share with my brother, and we had one TV, and we would choose movies. Usually I got to pick because I was the one who was up later, and my brother's younger than me. But I would always pick movies, and for whatever reason, even though we would have like the same movie running every night to go to sleep to for months at a time before we changed it. And but for some reason, I would see this movie, and I would stay up through the whole thing every night, and then go to bed. And it was so funny. It's like we chose the same movie so that we can go to bed to it. We know what happened. And it usually rotated. It was like, I think it was the original Ice Age, The Road to El Dorado, The Prince of Egypt, both great DreamWorks movies when DreamWorks still did the traditional animation, and Titanic, which is my favorite movie of all time, which, if you didn't know, now you know. Judge me however you will. But those were basically the four movies that over the course of like 5 or 6 years we would just put on we had them on VHS. We had one of those cute little kid TVs that had a VHS player built in, and we would put the movie in, and my brother would be asleep in like 10 minutes, and then I would just be up, laying in bed, and I would watch the whole damn movie, and every night I would watch the whole damn movie, and then I'd end up going to bed at like 3 a.m., and then I'd have to wake up at 7 a.m., and this so forth and so on, repeat. And I miss that, honestly. And I've actually been thinking about it recently. I'm like, you know, excuse me. Now I sleep in like complete darkness. Like I still need white noise to sleep. I think that was why. I think that was why we watched movies, because me and my brother needed noise to sleep. Like we could not sleep in just complete silence. It was unnerving. You know how they have those memes like, you know, oh, you can sleep through gunshots, you can sleep through fireworks, but when the fan's off, that's me. I cannot sleep if there is an eerie level of silence. So I have an air conditioner running, I have a fan running. In the winter, I still have a fan running. Not the air conditioner, but like, you know. And I figure if I get cold, I got covers. I got a bunch of different covers. But anyway, so I've been thinking about that recently, and I was like, you know, I sleep in complete darkness now with just the fan or the air conditioner. Who's stopping me as an adult from putting on The Road to El Dorado, or Ice Age, or The Prince of Egypt, or Titanic, all of which I have on DVD now, and just doing the same thing. And I think what's stopping me is not that I wouldn't enjoy it, but it wouldn't feel the same. You know, it feels like nowadays when I go to sleep, I'm going to sleep because I want to sleep, and I need to sleep. And I sleep a lot longer than I used to. And maybe that's partially because I got so little sleep as a kid. You know, like there are times where I'll get home from work and I'll sleep for like 12 hours. And that's a regular occurrence. It might also be something else. I don't know. Like I snore a lot. Maybe I have sleep apnea and it keeps me from actually getting the energy I need from sleep. It could be anything. The point is, it wouldn't feel the same to do that now because I don't have the time. And instead of sleeping just when I really need to, now I'm actually sleeping to just like to actually energize myself for the day. Whereas before, obviously as a kid, I had the energy. I could stay up and then go to school the next day and not even want to go to sleep after school. Nowadays, if I stay up to do something fun and then go to work, I'll sleep for like 15 hours because I gotta catch up. Like my body is just, and I'm only gonna be 30. Like I feel so old, and I know I'm not. I'm not even middle-aged, but it's just, my mind feels so aged compared to how I was when I was a kid. So, I mean, I'm sure there's more. I know there's more. I don't want this to trail on too long, because nostalgia is a deep, deep rabbit hole. Trust me. I am probably the most nostalgic person you'll meet, because everything has a story. Everything I like has a damn story. The last thing I will touch on is, it's a little more recent, but it kind of ties into the broader spectrum. I went on more vacations as a kid, and I think just car time in general I miss. I miss travel. I used to travel. I used to go on vacations as a kid, and even when I was in college, I had an amazing dad. He's still alive. I have an amazing dad who actually drove me back and forth from college every weekend. And he, and it was like an hour away. So, you know, that's a lot of driving for someone who also works full-time, just so I could go to college and come home. And I think it was partially so I could keep my job, because I wasn't able to transfer to the job, the grocery store. I've been working at a grocery store for a long time. I wasn't able to transfer to the grocery store in my college town, and this was an easier way for me to keep my seniority at my job. So I think he was doing that to help me out there. Regardless, it was awesome. But the travel, I ended up getting used to that travel too. And lately, I mean, again, COVID right now is kind of mucking everything up. But even before COVID, I've only been on a handful of vacations with my friends, and I've wanted to go on so much more, and it just feels like even when I go, I'm let down more often. Like when I was a kid, there was really so much more positive vibes, so much more wonder when you go somewhere. Like nowadays it feels more like there's negatives, there's overarching negatives to everything, and it ruins the experience. And I know that's like 4 different thoughts in one, but it's all kind of circulating around. I miss how travel and vacations used to feel, as well as I just miss the feeling of traveling because I don't do it as much anymore, and I wish I could. Even though I make my own money now, I can travel, but I don't have the same, I don't have a lot of people that want to travel with me. I go with my family when I can, but even my family hasn't gone that often, and it just feels like that's something I really miss. That's something I'm nostalgic about. I pine for the old days where we used to go on 2 or 3 vacations a year regularly. Like that was the norm for us. And now it's kind of transferred. I go to conventions. But again, as I mentioned in the previous video, those conventions are very close to home. So they almost feel like mini vacations. It is a getaway, and those have been my primary getaways for the past decade or so, but it still doesn't feel the same as actually going out of state or going somewhere that's at least 3 or 4 hours away. I've been to Niagara Falls, I've been to Wisconsin Dells, I've been to Myrtle Beach, and Myrtle Beach was just a year ago, last year, 2 years ago maybe. Something like that. It was relatively recently, and it was a really nice vacation, but it still didn't have the same feeling. Even though it was my first time in the ocean, it was awesome, but it still didn't have that vacation feeling that I got when I was a kid. Even though the vacations when I was a kid were actually shorter. Most of the times we were only gone for 2 nights, and then we came back. And nowadays, when I go on vacation, I'll stay away for a week just because I want to get away from work. But like I said, I think it's just my mindset. I think as you get older, you look at things differently. And even if you do those same exact things that you did as a kid, even if you were to replicate it, you wouldn't feel the same. At least I wouldn't. And I guess that's why, I assume that's why a lot of people pine for the past. Not just because they liked the things in the past, but because they miss the feeling. And I think that's why a lot of nostalgic things actually fail, because they fail at giving you that feeling. A lot of companies that exploit nostalgia, sometimes I think they fall short a lot because they can't recreate that feeling. They can only recreate the product. They can only recreate the experience from the outside, but they can't recreate how people feel when they're experiencing it. And I think that's just a part of aging, is that you do not experience things the same way anymore. And I guess I'll end with that, because I really, I don't have anything else. I have more nostalgia, but again, I don't want to drone on forever. I want to know your guys' story. What makes you feel nostalgic? What gives you that feeling? What do you miss? What did you bring with you into adulthood that you wish could have just stayed that way forever? And why? Leave your responses in the comments below. I will look at them. I will judge you positively. And yeah. And like I said in the previous video, if you have any questions that you want me to answer and then ask everyone else, please feel free to leave those in the comments below as well. I will definitely look at them and almost assuredly choose some to use in a coming video, an upcoming video. So, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.